Hello and welcome to Grief Seeds, a podcast where you'll find insights, reframings, metaphors, and visualizations, all known as grief seeds, to help you cultivate growth and healing in your life after loss. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I'm an intuitive grief guide and author, and on this show, I'll share insights from my interactions with clients, wise words from fellow grievers, and personal stories from my own life, with the hope that they transform your grief as they have transformed mine. Because even when it doesn't feel like it, we are planting the seeds of growth in the midst of great pain and heartache. Your grief is welcome here. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Grief Seeds. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I want to get into one of my personal, should I call it a pet peeve or a fear? I think it's both. The phrase back to normal, which is getting tossed around a lot these days, as here in the United States, we return to some semblance of life in the aftermath and in the continuing midst of, let me acknowledge that to be true, the COVID-19 pandemic. This is something that was a pet peeve for me pre-coronavirus, but now even more so as news anchors, as friends, even family, are saying, I can't wait to get back to normal. Anyone who has ever grieved will tell you that there is no such thing as back to normal. And that's exactly how it should be. This is a podcast that validates that. Because in the aftermath of loss, it is impossible. It literally cannot be done. You cannot unsee, unknow, untaste, unsmell, untouch, unremember the experience of what it was to lose. You cannot undo any of that. And what's implied when people say back to normal is that you can. You can forget. You can have amnesia about everything that you've just endured and somehow put it all away and compartmentalize it and resume life as you previously knew it, forgetting that all of this information that you have absorbed with your body, mind, spirit, heart is real. Back to normal in many ways, as a phrase, is a great denial of truth. And that is devastating to me, probably to you, to so many other grieving people who, when people say back to normal, we just meet them with these eyes wide open. How dare you imply that that's even a possibility, that reality is even accessible based on everything I've just been through. And so this is what's coming up for me right now as we reopen things here in the United States, as we loosen mask mandates, as we stop staying so sheltered and so tucked away in the safety of our homes, those of us that have had the privilege to do so. Back to normal. Yes, there is joy, there is happiness, there is freedom in getting to do the things that you used to do again, returning to those activities, returning to those friends, returning to those physical spaces and locations. And also, to use the phrase back to normal implies that nothing that happened, in this case, for the last year, existed, is important, has weight, has meaning, has influence. And yet it does. Its weight, its meaning, its importance, its influence is so great. It is so large. It informs literally everything that we do now. And it also implies, and this goes for grief events as well, not just the COVID-19 pandemic, that in the interim, while the pandemic was happening, while your grief event was happening, while you were busy mourning, that nothing of value was taking place, that you were removed from life, that time spent grieving and mourning and healing and processing and integrating did not have significance. To say we're going back to normal feels like saying everything that happened in that middle space, everything that took place in uncertainty, all of the life you lived and the milestones that occurred and the healing that you did and the person that you became as this loss was taking place is not as valuable as getting back to the way things were. When in fact, as anyone who has ever grieved will tell you, what happens in that time is of the highest importance, the highest significance. This is exactly where growth and self-love and compassion and developing these tools for going back into the world again start being practiced, start being formed. It's the incubator for all of those things. What happens in the time we are heavily grieving dramatically informs the people that we are when we quote unquote go back to normal, when we resume life, as people like to say, as if we've not already been living it, when in fact we very much have. We have been doing the hard work of living for this past year and beyond, for whatever loss you may have or whatever it may be that you're grieving. There is this myth that we can so easily and so willfully slip back into normal, as if it's a pair of pants that just got put away for a season. When in reality, the ways that grief has forced us to grow, the person that we've become no longer fits into the pants of that reality. We cannot. It is impossible. We have expanded and known and grown and received information that has made it so that form of reality, that pair of pants will never fit again. And it cannot. And we are not wrong or bad or malformed or incapable or non-functioning or sick because we can't. Because we tell the truth of not being able to fit in that space again. So when people say, I am so excited to get back to normal, I am so ready for this all to be over, you can certainly share in their relief, in their hope, in their excitement. But I challenge you, as people say, I can't wait to get back to normal, to ask them to specify which parts they're most excited about. Are you excited about seeing family and friends again? Are you chomping at the bit to sit down at a restaurant and have that whole experience? Are you so ready to be in a workplace physically again, if that's a privilege to stay at home that you were afforded within the course of the pandemic? Are you anticipating being less afraid of other people or of not talking about the same thing over and over and over again on the news? Is your brain so delighted to pay less attention maybe to the numbers or to death, to talk about something else for a change? What is it exactly that you are anticipating in this future? And this reminder, hand over the heart reminder, that this is not back to normal. It's a resuming of things that existed before, activities, people, places that went on pause for a bit. But what you have been doing in this time in between has been valuable and generative, and has made it so that you can't just go back to normal. It's normal with an extension. It's normal with expansion. It's normal with far more information than you ever had before and possibly ever wanted to know. And all of that is informing how you live your life right now, and that's exactly how it should be. We cannot go back to normal. We can construct a different kind of normal. Some grieving people would say a new normal, from everything that we have been forced to know and endure and survive and live through and see and witness and hold space for in the last year. And this is true for COVID-19, and it's also true for whatever loss you are facing. There is no back to normal, and that's exactly how it should be. That's correct. You've got it. You've got it. And you have so much permission to have hope for things returning, to resume activities as your new grieving self, to participate again in things that got put away, whether because of grief, because of the pandemic, because of isolation, because of exhaustion, for whatever reason. It's okay to have that as well. I invite you to take a deep breath with me here. And out. May you know, dear grief grower, that when you bristle at the phrase, back to normal, there is nothing wrong with you. There is a truth arriving in your heart, in the wholeness of your being, that knows for sure, because of what you've seen, what you've lived, what you've faced, what you now know, that back to normal is not a possibility. You can't erase everything that just happened. That's not within your power, and it's not within anybody else's power either. Surrendering to the reality of that truth, allowing it to be true. And as you are surrounded by people who are so thrilled to quote unquote go back to normal, may you hold space for the things that you may be excited to return to yourself. It's okay to desire foundations again. It's okay to want structure again. It's okay to desire community, to be in spaces where other people can gather. And knowing with all of your being, with the wholeness of your being, with the everything that you have been asked to, forced to face, all of the things that you've lost, that there is no back to normal. And that's okay. Deep breath in here. And out. Thank you for listening today. So that's all for this episode of Grief Seeds. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find additional grief support at shelbyforsythia.com or by following me on social media at shelbyforsythia on Facebook and Instagram. If this podcast helped you in your life after loss, please leave a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And be sure to share Grief Seeds with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for financially keeping this podcast on the air. If you'd like to support Grief Seeds on Patreon through a yearly or monthly pledge, you can do so at patreon.com/shelbyforsythia. My Patreon supporters get access to behind-the-scenes content, including a once-a-month grief support call with me and 5 90-minute workshops with topics decided by grievers themselves. Again, that website is patreon.com/ShelbyForsythia. Music for Grief Seeds is performed by Addie Goldstein. As always, my dear grief growers, it was beautiful sharing this space and time with you today. I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world, and I love you. Because even through grief, we are growing.